Hello Internet, welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie, and in today's video we are back in our Christmas mini zoo, and that is a tiny franchise mode zoo that we are kind of theming around Christmas and the holidays. It's going to be a nice cold themed zoo with appropriately chilly animals. And in today's video we are building for one of the most iconic animals in terms of Christmas. It's one that is most synonymous with the Christmas time of year, and that is of course the reindeer. And the most unfortunate thing about playing in franchise mode is that you cannot rename animals. So we do not have our Blitzens and our Glitzen and the Dasher and Prancer and I don't know, Fred, whatever, and Rudolph. Yeah, we don't have all of those, unfortunately. We do end up with Sven, which is pretty cool, because Sven is obviously the name of the reindeer from Frozen. So yeah, pretty happy to manage to get a Sven. What you can see me doing right now is starting to create their house. I'm going to be making a nice barn for them using various Arctic wood pieces. And the reason that I'm going to put in a bit more effort into making them a barn it's simply because reindeer live in areas that you either have large open spaces, kind of just this endless sea of snow, or they're in quite thick forested areas. And therefore our habitat is going to be leaning into one of those two kind of structures. Because I like to try and replicate these animals' natural environments as much as possible. So therefore the actual habitat itself is going to look fairly similar to the surroundings of this zoo. So we need something to separate it a little bit. And we are going to focus quite a bit on the housing instead. We're going to make a nice rustic looking barn. And these Arctic wood pieces are perfect for that. They have such a nice aged and weather look to them. So I'm really happy to be using those in this particular build. And what you're going to be doing right now is I've kind of created a bit of a silhouette for it. I've created the basic facade that you're going to see at the end. And you'll notice that the roof goes up in two different kind of taperings or two different angles. And that is to kind of replicate those classic American style barns that you would get with the massive doors with the X's on them and stuff. They often have two different inclines on the roof. As for the reasoning, I'm not entirely sure, but the reason I'm using it is just because it looks pretty classic, I think. Just from the silhouette of this building, you know what the function of it is. I am also using some of the Arctic wood roof tiles as well. I really like the way that this, they're not slate, they're wood, aren't they? So what would you call them? Tiles? Yes, obviously the wooden tiles. I love the way that they are layered on top of each other. I just think it's a really nice look. And then inside we're going to be using some of the pieces of wood that I believe are also from the Arctic pack. I'm not 100% sure. Let me read that. That says wooden anchor beam. Yeah, I'm going to go with that is from the Arctic pack as well. Get it to an appropriate colour and then rotate it and whatnot so that we can kind of line the walls and the roof with this. This is going to create a support structure internally just so that this building makes a little bit more sense, I guess, in terms of how it actually would stand if it was a real world building. And then once we are happy with the layout of these pieces of wood and stuff, once we're happy that it actually makes sense, we will be able to highlight the wall piece, the roof tiles, and this wooden support structure we're creating now, and then copy and paste it down the length of the building. And it's a really simple way of just creating the entire structure in one fell swoop. So that is why I'm putting in a little bit more effort into this really small area to begin with, because then I can just duplicate it and have the entire building look this finished. Once the majority of this building is complete, we can then start to make finer adjustments to kind of give it a bit more character and make it seem a bit more unique, I guess, because at the moment it's just a glorified shed. So we're going to make a few adjustments, such as removing some of the side panels and then replacing them with some 1 meter tall ones so that we can insert a window. To fill in these window areas, we're going to use a lovely looking lattice piece that comes from the Arctic pack as well, simply because I don't want to use glass. I think glass is going to make it feel a little bit too closed in. Here we have free-flowing air coming from the outside to the inside of the building. This ventilation is really going to help with the smell in there, for one thing, making sure the air doesn't feel too stale inside. It's just something that I think would work pretty well in a real zoo. I'm not entirely sure, I'm no architect but I quite like this finished effect, especially as it does help separate from just a normal building that would have glass windows. Just a little bit more interesting, isn't it? So that is what we're doing for the windows. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Arctic roof trim, and these are basically some spikes that go along the very peak of the gable and then run the length of the building, because why wouldn't you want your shed to look like it's a big lizard? I mean, that's exactly what I think of when I see these. It looks like the little spines on the back of a lizard. And then I'm going to cap off each end using some nice Arctic pieces as well. Really does kind of look quite Viking-y by adding these finishing touches, and that's something that I'm pretty happy with, even though this is in Asia, this tundra zone. It doesn't really work with Arctic kind of stuff, I guess, because it's all Norwegian-y themed, and that doesn't really work quite as well. But we're kind of ignoring the country that this is being built in and just focusing on the biome. Speaking of the bio, there's no bloody snow. I don't know what's happened. We go a full year without any snow for some reason in this zoo. That's global warming for you, isn't it? My little tundra zoo is just grass now. There is no snow. Yeah, a little bit of a tangent there, but I found it very confusing and very odd. Now we're going to get onto decorating the front of this building, because at the moment the doorways where you get into the barn is just a bit boring, because I'm wanting our guests to be able to enter this barn, have a look and go, oh look, it's a reindeer. So we're going to decorate the front of this, and we're going to use some Arctic Eve pieces. I am fully aware that these are meant to go where the roof tiles would end and then drop down onto the wall. I'm not going to use it like that. I'm going to just use it to break up the front of this building a little bit, kind of put it into two separate layers. And then we're going to use some funky arch pieces and sink them into the wall a little bit, slightly behind these eaves, just to add some decoration. It really adds a little bit more to look at the front of these buildings. And for now, I'm just focusing on what it looks like on this end, because when I'm happy with it, I can just select all of it and then copy and paste, move it to the other end of the building, and hey presto, we've got a funky looking barn. There's also this lovely reindeer carving that is in a circle. I'm going to place that in the middle of this wall right above the door. I think it's a nice way of saying, hey look, there are reindeer in here. They just adds a bit more character to this building. And then as a finishing touch, we're going to take some wooden timbery pieces to kind of create a little bit of a door frame to this door, because at the moment it just looks like a hole in the building, and it just makes it look a little bit more finished by adding some timber framing to it. Now we're going to move to the inside of the barn, where our guests are going to be able to walk in and fear they might get bitten by a reindeer, and we're going to create a bit of a barrier for them so that they don't get trampled or stabbed by antlers. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start by using a few different posts. So I say a few different posts. It's the same post, just placed in different areas. We're going to create a kind of border that we can place around a path, and we're going to link them all together using the lattice pieces that we used in the windows earlier. Not only does this kind of create a bit of a pattern across the building by using the same building pieces, but I just think it looks lovely. And we're then, as a finishing touch, going to use some circular beams. I guess they're not circular because the circle's a flat shape, isn't it? So cylindrical beams. We're going to put some of those at the top to make it look like that's what the lattice is kind of slotting into, and that is the main support structure between the posts of these fences. And then we can get on to actually creating a proper perimeter for this enclosure, and we're just going to use a chain link fence. We're going to keep it nice and simple, because these animals, they're not that threatening. I mean, they might be if you make them angry, but generally speaking, it's not quite like a polar bear. You don't need a brick wall. The fence will do just fine. So we're going to use a chain link fence and create a nice flowy looking kind of habitat for this. And it's going to be backing onto the path where you would go to see the snow leopard, or for the staff to access the staff village that we created in the last video. And then when we get back to the barn, we're going to use a null barrier to run the perimeter around the barn, and we're also going to then run that null barrier around this little structure that we just created for the path. And we're going to place the staff gate inside of the barn as well. Just delete some of the necessary fence panels to make sure that the door fits nicely and that our zookeeper can get in and clean and feed for this habitat. And it was at this point that I decided that whilst I did like the end of the barn, the entranceway to it, I wanted to jazz it up just a little bit more, and something that I haven't really paid too much attention to so far is lighting. So I'm going to use the Arctic wall lights, which are these nice torches, as in a flame lit torch. I'm going to put those on the door frame where you'd be entering. Just going to add quite a bit of character to this building. And then right in the entrance, kind of in the corners of where the barn's path meets the main path, that right angle kind of point there, we're going to place these massive reindeer straw sculpture looking things. I don't know why, it's Christmassy, isn't it? I think it looks cool. We're also going to place some wooden Christmas tree sort of things on the wall as well, sink them in a little bit. I personally think this is the best change to this structure. Placing these Christmas tree gives it so much character. I just think they look really, really nice. So I'm very happy with having decided to do that. As for the rest of this build, I am going to pop it into time lapse now and just let you guys sit back and enjoy it, because quite frankly, I've annoyed myself. I'm talking so much and just my voice annoys me, so I'm going to stop talking now. I don't want to annoy you guys as well. The basic idea behind the rest of the build is I want our guests to see into this enclosure from the path that leads to the barn and not the path that is by the snow leopards. So we're going to place loads of plants on the snow leopardy path to make sure guests can't see through that clearly. Maybe place some reindeer statues and whatnot as well, just for a little bit of scenery. You know, it's nice, isn't it? And then inside the actual habitat, we're going to use a bunch of trees and loads of the caribou moss, which is pretty fitting because here's a little fact for you. Bonus fact, Floki's going to give you one, but I'm going to give you another one. Reindeer and caribou are in fact the same animal, it's just that reindeer is the domesticated name for them. I had to re-record this little fact because I accidentally said pedestrianised instead of domesticated. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be placing a bunch of mosses and some low kind of bushes and stuff. Nothing too fancy, nothing really, really bright in this habitat. We are focusing on drawing attention to our animals. We're going to have either really tall, so it's far above their head, or low level, ground height kind of stuff, so that it is below their feet, so that you are focusing on this mid-height kind of thing inside the habitat, which is of course the lovely reindeer. So enjoy the rest of the video, enjoy the rest of this build. If you're not subscribed already, I would advise you don't subscribe, it's a mistake, we're all a bit mad here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.